bachelor's, but make sure you get your master's.
Yeah.
That will put you in sync. But we didn't kind of let that roll over to the next generation.
Yeah.
And now, and even in my day, it was, and after you get your master's, then you go for your PhD.
Right.
It's like, what?
But I wonder, if I may ask, I
Yes.
wonder if there was a situation where, when you were growing up, even if somebody wasn't cut out for college and academia and stuff like that, there seemed to be more options and more preparedness. So, like, one thing I talk about, I was having a conversation with older generations where they were talking about, like, there's so many millennials talking about wanting to, move out, into the wilderness and farm and do all these other things. And they're like, but you guys don't have the skills. And it's like, we were not taught these things.
Thank you.
So it's like, when I went to high school, the last high school I went to, we didn't have auto. We didn't have woodworking. We didn't have these things. We didn't have those things that it's like, okay, if you're not cut out to go to college, let's get you some skills and maybe you can figure out something that you want to do so that way you can maybe go to a trade school or maybe go get an apprenticeship somewhere. We were just taught, I don't want to get too into the sticks with it, but it's like you talk about the focus of standardization tests within, education, but all those things where it's like, when I was coming out of, granted, when I went to high school up the street, they had woodworking, but that was about it. I don't know if they still have it there, but like, we live here in a more affluent area, but it's like, again, the high schools I went to after that, once I moved from this area, no woodworking, no auto, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
Had none of those courses, none of those skills. Our parents weren't teaching us those skills. If you got lucky that, you knew somebody that was a mechanic or something like that. But now there's not that community here to suffice that either.
Yes.
All this other things. And so it's like, we really came out being told just go to college. And then when college didn't work out for some of us, we didn't really have those skills. And then we got, we got caught up. And it's like, well, you guys don't have skills. And it's like, well, we aren't in charge of our own education, at least up to a certain point. I didn't come out with skills.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if there was that difference for you growing up.
There was definitely. Thank you. That is a fascinating exchange here, because, a lot of our parents were telling us things like, I don't want you to work with your hands.
Yeah.
So I want you to get a good education. You won't have to be a guy pumping something at a gas station, or a mechanic, or a pipe fitter, or, on and on and on and on. Well, during the rollover to the information age, pretty, prescient, pretty far-seeing, but there were still some skills that obtained.
Yeah.
Still some things that we need. They may use computers now. That's part of the mix.
Yeah.
However, there were television shows on about people who still use their hands, people who are still in the skill-based industries that don't involve sitting at a desk all day with another totally different skill set.
Yeah.
So and there were many people in my generation that didn't quite make that jump and that turnover.
Yeah.
But they made a living for themselves.
Yeah.
As a welder, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who's a poet was also, like a pipe fitter for a number of years. He's now retired.
Yeah.
And those kinds of skills that are the basic skills, exterminators.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, people say, well, a lot of those things have been taken over by robots.
Yeah.
And we could look forward to that maybe in the future. But I got to tell you, when we were your age, we were told that everything would be done by robots. Everything. Everything. And we grew up thinking, yes, everything. And as time passed and innovations did not occur, we began to realize that, wait a minute, either someone's holding some technology back, or we just are not as far technologically advanced as we thought we were.
Right.
And so many of us for a long time were looking for like the cell phone.
Yeah.
Because we saw Buck Rogers and shows like that, and Star Trek, and we thought, oh yeah, by the time I reach 25, this is how I'm gonna live. Well, no, that did not happen. And, we became disillusioned, to be honest with you.
Interesting.
And figured, great, fine, whatever. And then we had our Steve Jobs who were like, no, it's not going to be whatever. I have these skills. Sure. I'm going to apply them. Some of the computer innovators did not finish college. Yeah. It was, hey, I know what I need to do now.
Right.
And I've seen some of this in your generation. It is fascinating, providing real up-to-date innovations in how to process plastics.
Yeah.
So that around the world you might build things like roads with plastic and a special gradable material, or houses with plastic. So shorter answer perhaps is, we definitely were caught up in that whole thing too. And there was that division, but the innovators of each generation, and your generation has a plethora of innovators, began to push forward, and that's what I'm looking for. So you won't feel so claustrophobic and trapped with I only have my bachelor's, and people saying, oh my dear, you only have your bachelor's. If you had your master's, because there were a lot of us that once we got our master's, you now need your PhD. Oh my.
Yeah, of course.
Oh my. So, if we could just find a wise balance, a real balance, projecting what is really going to happen for the future, and give it to the generations beneath us. I think had we done that for you, it would have eased a lot of the pain and a lot of the frustration that your generation is now feeling. I honestly do. Thank you for asking. Thank you.
Of course.
And thank you for your response, because that was deep. Y'all hear out there? That was deep. Last question. Can you identify one solution that you think might help young working class and poor and middle class males especially? Because it seems to be a lot anchoring around the male now. And we know that in some cultures it's male and female. Ladies, please don't get upset with me out there. I should say males and females, but I'm interested in young males today because we have a young man sitting in front of us, and because we hear a lot of disgruntledness from a lot of the young men. So what can they do to achieve a fulfilling and productive life? And yes, I know you recognize the caveat is basically defining what is fulfilling for you and what is productive. What does productivity look like to you?
I think what kind of, when I first hear, my mind goes into a lot of different places when it comes, with like, flow. I guess just, being a man and seeing what it is. And, they talk about the male loneliness epidemic and all this other stuff.
Yes, that's part of it.
I think that there is a lot of ideas within the way men are socialized that existence is suffering. That you need to be hard, that you need to do these things, you need to make the most money, you need to be an entrepreneur, you need to be able to inflict violence, you need to be all of these things. And not finding one who you are and like having a space within yourself for yourself, but also wanting to be part of community in a wider sense. So what I mean by that is like, you have guys that hang out with other men and all that other stuff, and I'm very fortunate that the friends that I have in my life that our men are not only emotionally available,
Mm-hmm.
but also we hold each other accountable for the things that we say and that we do and
Yeah,
all that other
yeah,
stuff. But
yeah.
there's also wanting to that is like, how do I be good for myself, but also for, you know, the people around me?
Yes,
You
yes.
know, because it's one of those situations where I think that's where men are starting to struggle is this idea that you're by yourself and you're alone and you're gonna do
Mm.
this alone and all that other stuff. And so we've kind of, in a grander sense, sort of taken ourselves out of the community and then suffered in this pocket. But now we struggle going back into the community because we come with all these toxic ideas of
Yes,
how we should be treated, how women should act and do this and do that and all that other stuff. But it's
yes,
like,
yes,
no, you are part of this and
yes.
we should all be in this together. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing I feel that is hurting with men is not having that sort of balance and being within the community and learning what that means. I like psychology. I like like being in social work. I like nonprofit work. Is it the most fulfilling money dollars wise?
Yeah.
No, but I feel like that this is how I'm able to give back into the community, and that's been fulfilling for me in a lot of different ways. You know, making sure I do things like go to therapy and have a space for myself that is within myself as well of just like, you know, what are things that I like to do?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
And I think that's kind of like where that kind of jam up is because it's like, you know, it's like if you're a man and you're not making six figures and in the gym and doing this and doing that, then you're not a real man. And it's like, you get to define that for yourself.
Yeah,
And not only do you get to define that for yourself, like the goal should be health and wholeness, not only for yourself, but for the people around you.
yeah.
And I think that's kind of where it gets lost is that, like, you know, we live in an individualistic culture, but like, you know, what we tell men to do, it's very much the self.
Yeah,
And that if that's not good, then you are somehow failing. And it's like, well, maybe you just haven't figured out what's for you yet.
yes,
You know?
yes, yes. I wanna leave it there, y'all, and just suggest to you that we need to change part of our fabric of our society's grand narrative because we still have those two competing narratives.
Yeah.
For community, no. For myself, because I am the rugged individual who has
Right.
to, you know, and the blending. I like what you suggested, the
Yeah.
blending of the two.
Yeah, it's one of those like, yes, absolutely make sure that you and your family are taken care of and all that other stuff, but that does not necessarily mean that everything else around you is in opposition to you. I think that's kind of like where I'm going with that, where if the way that men have been socialized is that if nothing is cooperating with you, it is in direct opposition with you. And so therefore you need to attack it. And it's like, no. And that's why so many of you are so unhappy, because if women aren't subservient to you, that means that they are in opposition to you, so you need to go attack them. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. That's not how this works. That's not how life works. That's not how community works.
Yeah.
Not everything is in direct opposition to you. And I see so many men get so lost in that, and it's so unfortunate.
Thank you for those words of wisdom. We're going to leave it there, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
You heard it from Mr. McNeil. We're going to leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
So, bless you, and we're out. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.